will die in my grave to say that if you are considering getting a divorce or you're going through marital issues, you should start with getting your blood tested.
Wow.
Both partners. And I think it is the improvements we saw by being healthier and having optimized testosterone levels as a couple is, it's immense. It goes without saying. It did save our marriage, and I've seen it save my friends' marriages. We put out a blast to our customers. We get hundreds of replies saying, yeah, it did. It absolutely. And sometimes it might just be one partner, but that partner should be starting with that as well. And typically we see when partners are doing something together, it usually is a better win. It would be like one partner who doesn't ever diet and the other partner who's always on the diet. Like it just never really goes well together. So we say, get your hormones checked and, optimize together in many cases.
Whalen, welcome to Passion, Love, Pursuit podcast. Excited to dive into our topic today, which will specifically be geared towards men. But I had your wife on, Katie from Joy Wellness. She is the co-founder, and you're also the co-founder of Joy Wellness as well as Blokes. But I had her on the podcast as well, and I wanted to have a conversation specifically for women and then specifically for men, and that's why you're on today. But I know this is not just for men because I feel that women could really gain a lot of knowledge as well listening, because I think we are sometimes the ones that influence our partners to go down a healthy path and to optimize their health as well. And so this is for women and men. So anyways, Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Erica.
So welcome. So, well, let's just dive in. First of all, I of course do an intro offline before this episode, but I want to hear from you. Can you share what led you into starting your company, Blokes, and what is your company catering towards today?
Yeah, so I'll give you the shortest version of this, but I've been in healthcare for 17 years. I worked for a large med device company called Stryker for about four or five of those years. And then I've been an entrepreneur in healthcare ever since, and done a lot of fun stuff from owning and operating stem cell clinics to labs and compounding pharmacies. And this business happened to be more of a personal thing that turned into a business. And there were kind of two facets. One was my health. I was literally 50 pounds heavier. I had no sex drive. I hadn't seen the inside of a gym in years. And that ultimately gave a nudge from my wife, Katie, who you met, and said, hey, I'm going to divorce you because you've changed. You have no sex drive. And this is something that I need part of my life. And I went and saw primary care docs. I went and saw internal med docs. And that was the first time in my life as a patient that I ever felt gaslit in our healthcare system. And people say it all the time, that our sick care system, traditional care is broken. It really is in many facets, and it does a lot of things really well. But when it comes to preventative and proactive care, it fails immensely. And that's where I was in that journey. And, after just, kind of throwing up a Hail Mary, I went to my brother and I went to my brother-in-law and my sister and said, hey, I'm facing these issues. I'm struggling. I'm going to get a divorce. I have two kids. And they're like, hey, go see this optimization guru who does these things called peptides, and he optimizes your testosterone. And you got to think this was like 4 or 5 years ago when like people weren't really talking about. The buzz has changed a lot. So we were pretty early on, and I went and saw him, and that single encounter is what I credit to saving my marriage, probably saving me from having a heart attack in my mid 40s. And then putting us on this warpath to start this business. And that was really where Blokes was born. I took a lot of what I went through as a patient, and I said, God, there's a lot that was still broken. The convenience was not convenient. I had to drive 45 minutes each appointment. I just wanted to make it accessible. And I thought I had a feeling that for me, if I had that much trouble navigating the system, a lot of other Americans were in that same boat, both male and female. And that's when we launched it.
So needed and so amazing, because you're filling the void that I feel a lot of people are looking for, especially these days. Thank goodness there is so much more available. So I thank you for what you've created. Obviously, I mentioned to you, I'm working with Joy Wellness. My husband's working with Blokes. So we personally are invested in this and having the experience as well to optimize our health, not just settle for what is normal. And I love your cap today, your hat that you're wearing, it says fuck normal. And this is honestly exactly what it is like, screw this
Yeah.
normal range, because we don't want to just feel normal, which, by the way, normal means the same as typical Americans, which, as we know, are not in the most healthiest
Right.
range. And so I want to be optimal. And I think a lot of people that are listening to this are seeking that, or at least to feel better than they feel, right? So let's talk about fuck normal a
Yeah.
little bit, because you wore the perfect hat today. Is this your
Yeah.
brand hat, by the way?
It is one of them. We have a handful of sayings. This happens to be one of them. I'm probably like the full ambassador of fuck normal. We also made a hat called fuck sick care,
Mm.
and it's actually really simple. It was not like this conjured up idea. We weren't whiteboarding like, what could our merch look like. I was told I was normal and I was 50 pounds heavier. I had no sex drive. And when I came home and I told my wife that, she's like, no, 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 you're not normal. You've changed. And so that's where that hat was born. And obviously the fuck sick care piece goes without saying. And it was just me going through this traditional process of our healthcare system. And I've been fortunate or unfortunate to live on so many different sides of this business. I've been in the OR, I've dealt with hospital administrations, I've owned and operated clinics where we didn't take insurance and we took insurance. I've owned and operated pharmacies, I've owned and operated diagnostic labs. I've seen insurance come, I've seen it go, I've seen it crash. So I have a little bit of an inside scoop of how it works. And for me now as a founder in this business, it's beautiful because like we are actually doing something that consumers want. We are actually helping people live a healthier life. And we built out this ecosystem to meet the consumer where they're at, whether it's supplementation, whether it's diagnostic labs, whether it's hormone therapy, peptide therapy. We've kind of solved that puzzle. And it's just fun because we're actually helping people now.
Thank goodness, right? Well, okay. So one thing that I like to say is test, not guess. I'm sure that's one of your slogans as well. It's so
Totally.
important to know what's really going on underneath the hood. And I think when we go to typical, as you say, healthcare, sick care, whatever you want to call it, I remember I was requesting, I had a list of labs that I wanted. And so I gave it to I said, I want all these labs. He's like, well, we don't usually test for that. I'm like, no, I want all these labs. And I was like, full thyroid panel and all these requests. Come to find out, my insurance didn't cover it, mind you. It didn't even cover hormones. Mind blown that I'm like, why am I paying to like test the most important thing that drives like our well-being, that influences so much? But my point is that we need to test these things, but it's not just this, there's so many components that work together in these biomarkers that aren't tested in typical healthcare system. And so what you do differently is you have different biomarkers you test, but you do test those components that work together, like full thyroid, full
Yep.
sex hormones. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, because I really want people to understand the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I do say test, don't guess often. So I'm completely aligned there. And it's really interesting. You brought up just your experience. And I think it's important to dive into that because this is what we are facing as Americans. I can't tell you how many times I get a message in my personal Instagram, thanking me because they argued and challenged their doctor just to run testosterone as a man. And, he's 36, 40, 45. And it's just something that seems off. And usually when it seems off, it is off. And for us, it was just about giving a complete picture. And what's happened in our society, what's happened, especially in insurance-based models, is something called reactive-based testing. And when your insurance is part of that care, they're dictating that care. So like the primary care is almost only doing what the insurance is allowing them to do. It's not maybe what he believes or what she believes. It is they are being restricted because let's say Erica goes in and Erica runs this massive panel that say Blokes or Joy offers, and then all of a sudden half of it's not covered, and you're coming out of pocket 300-400. I've seen bills for our exact panels as high as $3,500.
Mind blown.
It's mind blowing, and somehow we can price them from 99 to $500 depending on the depth of what you get, and pair it with the consultation. So, for us, it's always been about what I want as a consumer, what I want as a patient. Like, we are all, at the end of the day, we are patients, we are consumers. And like, I feel like it's very just general to say, hey, I just want a complete picture of my health so I can know how to react to it proactively or reactively. And that's all we've built out is lab panels that are complete, that you can make a medical decision, that you can make a nutrition decision, a lifestyle decision. And then if you really want to get into the biohacking of it, we've offered that. And, it goes from 44 biomarkers up to, close to 90 biomarkers, depending on your depth and your budget.
Yeah. I also want to share this too, because it recently happened. I think last week I went to the doctor because I was actually some of the labs that came back on mine, for example, and I'm just being vulnerable and sharing this. My ANA was positive. So that's for autoimmune, which I do have autoimmune scalp psoriasis. So I am aware of that. But of course, something to inquire about, like if there's something else going on. But the other thing that came on, and I forgot what it's called, but it's the inflammation marker. I
Yeah.
don't know if you,
Well, we kind of classify a handful, but it could be cortisol, C-reactive protein. Probably C-reactive protein
I
is
think it
what you're
was
looking
that
at.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I brought that to my doctor, and they're like, "Oh, we never test for that." I'm like, "Well, my
No,
inflammation's off the
no,
chart."
they'll
And
never test for that.
isn't that
No,
mind-blowing?
no. I'm telling you, the ApoB, that's like C-reactive protein. Getting a primary care and internal medicine doc to test for cortisol, something that is a massive antagonist to optimization, you would literally have to pull teeth, and you
Mhm.
would have to convince them, probably even sign off on the fact that that test may not be covered. It may not be part of your plan. You may have not met your deductible, and you're going to have to likely come out of pocket for it. But we see this every day.
Yeah. Okay. So this is why I love your company. And as he kind of mentioned, there's different tiers that you could test. Different if you want to go, testing everything.
Mhm.
You said it was like $5.99 for all the biomarkers, and it includes even a health coach to
Yeah.
walk you through it and suggest things to you. So inexpensive. And this was one thing that I was mind blown about, because I do know these blood tests are quite expensive, because I got a bill for these things. And I didn't request all the things that I even got tested through
Yeah.
Joy Wellness. But that's what I think is so great, is what you offer. And it's in depth,
Yep.
and you actually get information of what to do when you get your test back. So it's amazing. So we'll go
Yep.
deeper into this, but I want to touch on, most importantly, as I said, we're talking about men here. And so I'm not going to talk about my stuff anymore. But as far as the most important thing that I know is addressed and looked at today for men, that men are lower than ever in today's world, is testosterone. So I want to kind of go deep dive into testosterone. First of all, why today are so many men low in their testosterone levels?
Yeah. I wish it was one reason, because we could identify the problem and address that one reason, but it is so many different reasons. And you're right. We have seen almost a 10% decline in overall total testosterone over the last 5 decades. And we have this saying where we kind of jokingly, but it's true. You're not the man your grandfather was when we talk about testosterone levels, because it's been that drastic. And another epidemic that we're not really talking about either, and we don't have to talk about it at all, but is sperm count. That's also declining with that, and just the loss of masculinity in society. But if you looked at just a pie chart, there are so many factors to it. It's diet, lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, lifting weights, our phones. I mean, these things are next to us all the time, and how much we're getting a dopamine hit to a dopamine loss, all these different things that are playing a role. We're drinking more, drugs, everything that is playing a factor is causing that to be reduced. Our recovery sucks. Our sleep sucks. Guys are having less sex. I mean, that all drives these factors down to just lower testosterone levels. And unfortunately, it's happening in females too. I mean, for the amount of men that we see coming through with what we would consider suboptimal levels, I would say it's somewhere between 80 and 90%, depending on their age. And I would say it's probably equally that for females. And testosterone for females is just as important as it is for men.
I know that was one of my things that was low as well as lower testosterone. So, and I'm in the premenopausal stage of my life, but again, I'm not going to bring it back to me because we're talking about men here, but that's very interesting as hormones today, even I hear even estradiol is higher in men as well. And I know that's contributed, they're saying, with the diet, with the plastics, most
Yep.
importantly. So there's a lot of factors, like you said, at play. And so what would you say would be some of the things that are certain that we should eliminate or try to eliminate from our life that is contributing to low testosterone? If you were to
I
name like 3 or 5 things.
Yeah, I mean, number one, you have to start exercising. You have to start lifting weights, and when I mean weights, like pushing actual weight, doing squats, doing bench press, doing things that are going to challenge your system. People think that long distance running is great for testosterone. It's actually the opposite. Your body adjusts to that. The other thing that you have to do is you have to start looking at your diet and your lifestyle. And when I'm talking diet, are you eating whole foods or are you eating processed foods? Because that plays a role and an impact. And then all these things, like you talked about, plastics, microplastics, how much is that playing a role? I mean, we only drink out of these. Our kids only drink out of these. I have a coffee
That's
mug
right.
that is only Yetis. We eliminated plastic in our household. And then I think another thing too is reducing stress. So focusing on recovery, focusing on sleep. If you are not focused on sleep and recovery and stress, you are going to have low testosterone no matter who you are. It is a fact. So for me, I have prioritized my health. I have prioritized my sleep. My sleep stand. I have a chili pad, so it's 67 degrees every night. I have the temperature at 67 degrees. I put on my Dream Recovery eye mask. I put on my Dream Recovery mouth tape, and I put earplugs in. It's become like a full on workup. And I know, and everybody knows how productive and how great life is when you've had good sleep and how horrible it is when you've had bad sleep. So if you're doing just those things that are basically free, are very inexpensive, to go buy a Yeti, to go get a sleep mask, to go get mouth tape, all those things are going to make such a positive and massive impact in your life outside of prescription therapies. You have to start with those basics.
It's always the basics. And I love that you bring that up. And sleep is always number one. And I know, like you said, nobody feels good when they don't have a good night's sleep. It affects every area of your life and actually on a clinical level. So I love that you point that out. Actually, I was curious, do you know anything if grounding helps with
Oh,
testosterone levels?
I to the extent of it increasing testosterone levels, I don't know.
Okay.
I know sunlight does. So if you're grounding in sunlight and you're getting vitamin D, typically when you see a man or a woman and they have lower vitamin D levels, they're low. There's most likely a correlation to their testosterone levels, both total
Mm.
and free. And I would say that if you are outside and you are grounding and there is sunlight, you are probably doing the best of both worlds. My wife loves to ground. My kids ground. I ground. Probably don't do it enough, but getting out on grass and just stepping on the earth is always a good thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so what are some of the symptoms of low testosterone?
I'll tell you, we have somewhat of our own meta-analysis of people coming in, both men and women, and we ask all these symptomatic questions. The number one thing that women and men are suffering from, that is a direct correlation of testosterone, is energy. We are fatigued. We are massively fatigued. We are overweight. We all know that we're metabolically unhealthy. And when you start dealing with metabolic disease, 40% of the country is obese, another 30% is overweight. And we can argue over the BMI scale, but that is a fact. You start packing on visceral fat. So, fat around your abdomen that is, not wanted, obviously is a great sign of low T. And then the obvious, how's your erections? How's your, we call it performance? How are you waking up? Something that was so odd to me when I sat down, and this is when I knew I was in the right hands, the beginning of my journey before I even started Blokes. And I'll get personal, but we're all adults here. And the physician across from me said, "Hey, Josh, when was the last time you had morning wood?" And I'm like, "Wait, are you messing with me?" Like, he was like, "No. Think about it." And I go, "God dang, I don't know actually." And he's like, "Well, if you don't know, that's not a good thing."
Hmm.
And it was amazing. Once I got on TRT, I don't have to think about it. I know it happens every morning. And at my age and at most men's age, that should happen on a religious basis. And I've heard cardiovascular surgeons talk about this. ED equals ED. Erectile dysfunction equals early death. And that's all about blood flow. Are you getting the proper blood flow? So those are probably the most common symptoms that we see. Brain fog is obviously one of them. That happens with women all the time. But if you could just isolate it to the most common, that would be it.
So as far as the morning wood, is
Yeah.
it because that means you're getting proper blood flow? That's basically what
Yeah.
that means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And testosterone's phenomenal. When optimal levels of testosterone are there, your blood flow's there. A lot of times guys are seeking, PD5 inhibitors or, ED pills prior to even getting their blood analyzed. They should absolutely be getting their blood levels checked, their testosterone levels checked, because why get on an ED medication when it can be solved by just having healthier testosterone levels?
And it's never probably even thought of.
It's not. And I think some of it is a path of least resistance. I also think some of it is the source and where you're getting that information from. If I went to a primary care doc and I said, "Hey, I'm suffering from, erectile performance issue," he's likely going to go, "Yep, here's your ED pill, here's your prescription to that," versus going, let's slow the roll down. Let's look at your blood levels. Let's look at your estrogen. Let's look at your testosterone. Let's look at your free T. Let's look at your overall health, your CBCs, your CMPs, just to see what's going on under the hood, because that's root cause addressing. Throwing pills at your problem should be an option, but it should only be there after you've addressed the root cause issues.
Absolutely. Always. I love that. What is the normal range that, let's say, again, that you go to your normal, healthcare system, the normal range of testosterone, but what's the optimal range that men actually should be in? Let's talk about maybe 35 to 45. I don't know if that range is appropriate, but what would you say is the range that people actually should be in to feel their
Yeah.
best?
So I will tell you the standard range
Mhm.
values they keep getting lower, by the way. But it's somewhere between 250 and 1,000. So if you go to a LabCorp or Quest and you just get their basic panels, it's going to tell you that. That's also the mindset of an internal med. It's also the mindset of a primary care or a family medicine doc in most instances, not all of them. Some of them have come out of their shell and started accepting this. But when we look at it, it doesn't matter your age. Like if you're 30, if you're 50, you're 60,
Okay.
we want to see guys somewhere between, on the low side, 700 up to 1,200, 1,400. And it's all based off of symptoms.
Okay.
We see guys who are feeling amazing at 700. We don't adjust. We see guys who are feeling, still kind of sluggish at 700. We might up the dose. Our clinicians will, but it really is just based off of symptoms. But typically where we see guys perform their best is somewhere in that range.
Okay. And so if somebody's not ready to go on HRT yet, considering it, but they first wanted to see if they could bring up the numbers naturally and holistically, what would be some suggestions to boost testosterone? I know we kind of talked about obviously the getting the basics down, but is there anything else, supplementation or what
Yeah,
else?
totally. I mean, obviously, got to do the basics. You should be doing that whether you're on, some type of therapy or not, and you should be doing it prior to that. But there are definite supplements that can help boost. I mean, you gotta. I mean, a simple one that people just overlook is vitamin D. There's DHEA that can help contribute to that. Fedosia, agrestis, boron, zinc. There's a lot of great things. Ashwagandha isn't
Hmm,
technically what actually boosts testosterone. In theory, it reduces your cortisol levels. By doing that, it's kind of a byproduct and helps increase testosterone. So there's a lot of things that you can do.
that's
What we tend to do, or what we tend to think, is because our foods are so polluted, or we live in this polluted environment. You can only do so much, but that's why we created our smart supplements, to where we are looking at your biomarkers. We are addressing those biomarkers at a precise measurement. We are saying supplement with precision, supplement smart. And we can take those biomarkers and we can say, this is what you need to address through supplementation. That could be an easy route to start. But always get your biomarkers done to know like where to start and where the basics are, then you can look at supplementation, then you can look at, peptides, then you can look at therapies such as testosterone replacement.
Awesome. So I was actually listening to a video with Peter Attea. Is that how you
Yep.
say his last name?
Yep.
And it was about hormones, specifically for men. And they were talking about, and I'm pulling this out because you mentioned DHEA. They were talking about DHEA isn't actually even approved for supplementation in, I think they said Canada, and that it doesn't help with men. There's a little seen with women helping boost testosterone. But do you know anything further about this? I'm just curious because I
Yeah.
just heard it this morning. So
Yeah, I would agree to some extent. What I think the argument right now with things like that is it a performance enhancing mechanism? And no, it's not like testosterone. It's not like enclomiphene. It's not like a peptide, and it's certainly not like a lot of RXs we can prescribe. But what we often see is that DHEA levels are not even at a baseline,
right,
good level. So that's when you would want to maybe throw that at it, and it's a very inexpensive supplement for what it's worth. And we have seen positive benefits from it from people who are not taking therapies. We have an influencer that we've worked with for years that has suffered mental health issues, and he's been very open about it. And his DHE levels were almost non-existent, and we got him on a decent regimen of DHEA, and things around him just improved. So I think they're right, and I think but the argument on it being a performance enhancing mechanism is absolute. It is not that.
right. Okay,
It would
thank
be
you.
like taking vitamin D. Like if your levels are low, you should
Right,
supplement with vitamin
supplement.
D.
Right.
Same with vitamin C. Like to me, that is how you should look at it, and especially if you're symptomatic.
What would be some other common things? You did mention your vitamin D levels, so that's really important. We know that is so important for immune health as well. What would be some other markers you would see off if somebody has a lower testosterone level? Is there other things that are common?
Yeah, I mean, typically when you think about low T, it's likely there's likely other things that are part of that, and it's like your body's an ecosystem. I mean, oftentimes you're going to see, CBC markers being a little bit more off your complete metabolic panel. In some cases, you might see cortisol levels a little bit higher. You might see inflammation markers a little bit higher. Your thyroid and your testosterone biomarkers can play very, very similar roles. So you want to sometimes look at both at the same time and eliminate one or the other. But my general rule on testosterone, for the record, is not a very expensive therapy. It's the things that come with it. It's the labs. It's the supervision that comes with it that gets a little bit more pricey. But the little vial itself or the cream itself is not really that expensive. And typically, what I say is, anytime testosterone levels improve, almost every other biomarker correlates with that from an improvement standpoint. So it's the same when it's the opposite.
Amazing. Okay. And how about diet? Like an
Big
optimal diet to help boost testosterone? Is there something like carnivore,
I yeah, you
protein,
know, yeah. I mean, so it's interesting. Like, what's that guy's name? Paul Sal.
Saladino?
He just went off of, like, he's been talking about how he's tapered off the carnivore diet and how his testosterone levels were so good. My personal opinion is just whole foods, good
Yes.
meats, good organic food. Um, Doing your best to eliminate all processed food. Obviously, alcohol and smoking, that should go without saying, is going to play a role in that. But it's all part of like everything else. It's part of your lifestyle. If you're eating crappy, you're probably going to sleep worse. Your stress levels are going to be high. And Katie and I got to spend a little time with Laird Hamilton at one of his retreats, and he talked about this a lot. He's like, when I eat healthy, my body craves healthy foods.
Of
When
course.
I eat poorly, my body craves poorly foods. And think about it. If you've been rocking and you've been doing all the right things, and you're eating well, you're sleeping well, you eliminated alcohol or any type of substance that might hurt you, all of a sudden you put something in your body that your body hasn't had in a while, say, candy bar or some processed food, your body's like, Jesus, what's going on? It starts to reject it. You get stomach aches, you get headaches, you get a sugar rush. I mean, all those things play a massive role. So I think just overall balanced diet and honestly, whole foods. And I eat really good meat. I love steak. I love beef. We're fortunate enough to have a whole freezer full of Snake River Farms. And if it doesn't have meat in it, I typically don't eat it.
I hear you. Okay, that's great. Great to know. Going back to your story, because you said that obviously it transformed your marriage. You're still married, happily married. How common do you see this coming through in
A
blokes?
lot, a lot. I mean, we've gone as far as to, as of recently, I think in October, we did a marketing campaign just, through our content that just talked about hormone saving marriage.
Hmm.
And I will die in my grave to say that if you are considering getting a divorce or you're going through marital issues, you should start with getting your blood tested,
Wow.
both partners. And I think it is the improvements we saw by being healthier and having optimized testosterone levels as a couple is, it's immense. It goes without saying. It did save our marriage, and I've seen it save my friends' marriages. I've literally we put out a blast to our customers. We get hundreds of replies saying, "Yeah, it did. It absolutely." And sometimes it might just be one partner, but that partner should be starting with that as well. And typically, we see when partners are doing something together, it usually is a better win. It would be like one partner who doesn't ever diet and the other partner who's always on a diet. Like it just never really goes well together. So we say, get your hormones checked and, optimize together in many cases.
Yeah, I'm sure the men listening are like, yeah, my wife's being a bitch. Like, and honestly, I can't lie, it's because of hormones a lot of the times, that time of the month or whatever it may be. So it's kind of, I mean, it makes a lot of sense if you really think about it. So I understand. And I know obviously you weren't going to the gym and there was a lot of things going on in your life personally, but when your testosterone's at optimal level, you also will stay, like, you'll be more fit,
Yeah.
correct?
No, and people don't understand the role that your hormones play in your receptors of your brain. I mean, your testes are sending signals, your ovaries, your adrenals are all sending signals to your brain. And not only do you feel a physical effect, you feel a mental uplift. I mean, you all of a sudden, it was amazing the amount of motivation I had to just be a better dad, be more fit, have more energy to do work, reduce my coffee intake. I love coffee, so I've never gone cold turkey on that. I love the taste of it, but
Yeah.
just to be better in so many different areas, and that is a physical thing happening, that is a mental thing happening, but they are completely correlated to one another.
Yeah. Before I forget this, because I think a lot of people don't know this, men and women, hormone replacement, if you're planning to have children, if you're in the process of, to my understanding, you can't be on testosterone because you'll shoot blanks. Is that correct?
So the general rule is we will never prescribe a man or a woman testosterone while trying to conceive. Um, there are some doctors who will, and we have had patients come to us and say, yeah, I still got pregnant, but just from a safety profile, we will never do that. To speak in like 100% certainty, I don't know, but what I will tell you is as a practice, we would never do that. But there's also great ways to stimulate testosterone outside of replacement. And as we know, like anytime a male or a male or a female is taking some exogenous form of testosterone, it's shutting down that body's natural production. So there are ways to boost it without that.
Okay, yeah, because just from the information I heard at a fertility clinic that I went to for IVF, is they said, like, if a man is on testosterone, he needs at least 3 to 6 months being off of it. And I have another friend that had problems because her husband was on it and they didn't tell him, oh, you can't be on testosterone. So that's just
Yeah.
through the
No.
grapevine. That's what I've heard and recommended.
Yeah, I think the best and safest thing is if you were considering having any children, you should not get on TRT. And I, like I said, there are some old school clinicians that probably go against that grain, but we as a clinic, we do not.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So moving into peptides a bit, because that's a big part of your business. And I know it's a hot topic as well today. Is it just a luxury, or is there actually sometimes a need for peptides? What could you say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it depends on there are peptides that you would probably consider a luxury. And then there are peptides that are an absolute thing that people need to live on. We have peptides in our body. Insulin is a peptide. It's also a hormone when it's in your body, but when it's exogenous, it's a peptide. And you cannot live without insulin, whether you're type 1 or type 2 diabetic, or whether you're just somebody that deals, just walking and floating around like us. Then I think the argument, the big argument right now are GLP-1s. I've taken them. We have thousands of patients who have taken them. I think in the right scenario, when you're getting the right coaching, the right, clinical approach, I think they're life-saving. So I would argue that could be one that could be something that is 100% yes in certain cases. Obviously, we have a horrible system. We have 70% of our country is in this obese or overweight boat, so we have to deal with it. There's multiple ways to deal with it, but the changes and the lifestyle changes that's done has been profound.
Wow. So what do you feel is the most common that you're seeing people are coming to you for peptides? Is it the GLP-1, or is it anything else that you feel
Yeah,
is?
we do a lot with GLP-1s, and then we deal a lot with growth hormone secretagogues and things like Somorelin. NAD is not a peptide; it's a coenzyme, but that's something that people love. Glutathione could technically be a peptide. We don't sell a ton of that, but Somorelin is a big one. And you look at what that does. It helps with bone density. It helps with energy. It helps with weight loss, sleep. And studies have shown that it's helped with muscle definition and tone. So that's another good one that both men and women love.
Amazing. I heard recently one of the popular ones that was for gut health. What
Yep.
was it?
BPC.
Yeah, it's no longer available. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It's they're the FDA has put this on a list that in theory does not allow anyone to compound that. Um, I can tell you we used to prescribe it very often,
Hmm.
and it is a phenomenal peptide when done right. And I hope this new change of administration and the RFK Junior Maha movement, I hope it sheds a different and better light on the ability for pharmacies to compound this and consumers to be able to choose that pathway if they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So smart supplements. I personally am on your smart supplements. I have I believe it's 8 supplements that were recommended that according to my biomarkers that I need to enhance or supplement with. I'm not going to lie, I love the convenience. I'm a supplement queen. I have tons of supplements, and I
Yeah.
mentioned all the supplements I had, and some of them I'm like, oh, please pack it in there because I rather have it all in one to take and
Yeah.
less bottles. And also, it was cheaper. It was
Yep.
cheaper than buying individual supplements. Let me just tell you. So I love that part of your business personally because being a supplement queen, it makes it a lot more easier, obviously, to take with you. It's packaged perfectly to just rip off and take with you. So I really recommend anybody listening to this. And obviously, if you're going to go through Blokes or Joy Wellness, men or women, is when you get tested, obviously, then you'll see what you need and what is recommended. But I just love what you guys have created there
Thank you.
because I think that's so important. So many people are like, oh, do I take this supplement, this supplement? And some people just buy the supplements, yet they
Yeah.
don't need it.
Isn't it
So,
crazy? That idea came from me sitting around a group of people who are very athletic and very fit. And Eric Hinman is a friend of mine. He's he's a big influencer, and a bunch of guys and gals are sitting there, and we just started talking about supplements. And I'm just like, why are you taking it? Why do you take it? How do you know it's working? And that was where that, idea came from. It was like, why put something in your body that, one, you don't know why you need it, and why put something in your body that you don't know if it's actually working. Not everything you're going to get like a symptomatic feeling, but at minimum you can see what's going on under the hood to see if it is changing things,
Yeah.
such as vitamin D. You may not feel like a massive improvement from it, but the role it's playing in so many other things in your body is immense.
Yeah. Where are you getting your supplements from? Meaning, are they third party tested, or what's the efficacy of
Yeah,
them?
yeah. I mean, the only thing it's basically lacking is the ability to put it in a professional athlete's body, and the reason for that is, that's NSF, and we just haven't gone through that. The cost would be higher, and it's just not our market. Like, no offense to professional athletes, they're amazing, but that we don't want to fall in that testing pool. So they're non-GMO, all the highest standards that would come with any other supplement minus NSF.
Okay. Is it third party tested?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You bet.
All
Yeah.
right. Awesome. So, for the men listening today, what do you feel they need to know that they're missing out on?
Huh. That's a good question. I think if you're, so many guys are just apprehensive to make change, and so many guys are like, if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it. But you don't have to walk around feeling sluggish. You don't have to walk around feeling like, life is, the glass is half empty. For me, just start with prioritizing your health. And I think the first thing to do when you do that is getting your blood levels checked. And then you don't have to do anything from that, but at least get some type of look under the hood to have an evaluation that is in depth, to make a strategic and educational decision. Sometimes it's just completely preventative, and sometimes it's proactive in the fact, like, you might find something. My stepfather, I'd urged him for years to get a blood test with us, and found out that, we probably would have picked it up. We would have picked it up for sure. But, like, one problem led to a bigger problem. And then he gets diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And a simple blood test is going to even pick that stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, I found out some stuff for myself to look further into. And so now I'm getting a bunch of tests. And
Yep.
luckily, this is actually covered under my insurance because one of my things was the ANA positive. And so I'm like, and I forgot what else, but so he's like, oh, I'll order all these tests. So I'm getting tons of blood work done, but now it's covered because there's something actually like
Yeah.
requiring anyways. So it's so true. Like, you'll catch things that you won't know. If you don't test, you'll never know. And that's the only way to actually get to optimal health. So I really appreciate that. Well, I want to let everybody know that we have a special discount for you. As I said, for men, you'll go to blokes.co/Erica, ERICAL, and you'll get 20% off. This will be in the show notes. And then women, Joy Wellness, the same thing. Choosejoy.co/Erica L for 20% off in the show notes. And don't forget to listen to the previous episode we had on the show with Katie, his wife, to talk more about female hormones, HRT, symptomatic things for our premenopausal woman and menopause. So much information here. What else, Josh? What am I missing here? What else do we need to know for the men out there to get started today to feel their optimal self again?
Yeah, just be your best advocate and own your journey. Somebody's not going to nudge you. I mean, in my case, I got nudged by my wife, but, just be your own advocate and prioritize your health, because, you have one body, you have, one set of your own healthy, values, and it's a lot different when you're on the other end of that and you're dealing with something that's pretty serious. And we have seen that, and just getting ahead of it is going to be so much better, and you'll sleep better.
Awesome. This has been such a great conversation. I appreciate you so much, Josh. And thank you so much for what you've created and all that you're doing. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.